Imagine a man whose chilling nickname, the Night Stalker, only scratches the surface of his dark deeds. Today we delve into the shadowy story of Richard Ramirez, a name that would become a terrifying moniker in the annals of true crime. This man, known more widely by his ominous epithet, the Night Stalker, held the state of California in a vice of fear during a reign of terror that is as unforgettable as it is horrifying. His crimes, both heinous and shocking, spanned a spectrum of evil that left no one untouched. From home invasions to cold-blooded murder, his infamous deeds are a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity. His reign was not one of power or glory, but of terror and torment, casting a long dark shadow over the Golden State. As we peel back the layers of this dark tale, remember, the story of Richard Ramirez is a descent into the depths of darkness and depravity. Born Ricardo Leyva Munoz Ramirez in 1960, the future Night Stalker had a troubled upbringing that would foreshadow his sinister future. Ramirez, the youngest of 5 children, entered the world in the sun-baked border city of El Paso, Texas. But beneath the radiant Texas sun, the future Night Stalker was born into a world of shadows. His father, Julian, was a former Mexican policeman turned laborer, known for his fits of anger and bouts of physical abuse. His mother, Mercedes, worked in a boot factory, exposing herself to harmful chemicals during her pregnancy with Richard. These early environmental factors, some speculate, could have contributed to the darkness that later consumed Ramirez. His childhood was marred by incidents of abuse, neglect, and head injuries, further exacerbating his developing psychopathy. At school, he was recognized as a quiet child, often lost in his own thoughts, a stark contrast to the monster he would later become. However, it was his relationship with his older cousin, Miguel, that would prove most influential. A decorated Green Beret, Miguel returned from Vietnam with a mind scarred by the horrors of war and a dark fascination with violence. He regaled a young Ramirez with gruesome tales from the battlefield, even showing him Polaroids of his victims. It was Miguel who introduced Ramirez to drugs, further destabilizing the already troubled boy. This toxic mentorship culminated in a horrifying incident where Miguel fatally shot his wife in front of a 13-year-old Ramirez, an act that only served to desensitize the young boy to the brutality of murder. Ramirez's early life was a chilling cocktail of abuse, neglect, and exposure to violence, creating a fertile ground for the seeds of evil to take root. His path was set, and the boy from El Paso would soon transform into the Night Stalker, a figure of terror that would haunt the dreams of Californians for years to come. The seeds of evil were sown early, and Ramirez's path was set towards a future of unthinkable crimes. In the mid-1980s, a wave of terror swept California as an unknown assailant broke into homes under the cover of darkness. The assailant was none other than Richard Ramirez, who would later gain infamy as the Night Stalker. Ramirez's reign of terror was marked by a chilling modus operandi. He would strike in the dead of night, gaining entry into homes through unlocked doors or windows. Once inside, he'd unleash a horrifying spree of violence that was as unpredictable as it was brutal. From burglary to sexual assault to murder, no crime was too heinous for the Night Stalker. His victims were chosen seemingly at random, adding an unnerving unpredictability to his crimes. Men, women, the young, the old, no one was safe from the Night Stalker's reach. This randomness was a key part of his terror. It meant that anyone could be next, and it was this pervasive fear that kept California on edge throughout his reign. Let's delve into a few of the Night Stalker's most notorious cases to truly understand the depth of his brutality. One such case involved a couple in their 60s. After breaking into their home, Ramirez shot the husband, killing him instantly, before assaulting and brutally beating the wife. In another, he targeted a 16-year-old girl, breaking into her home and assaulting her before leaving her for dead. In yet another case, he broke into the home of a single mother, assaulting her before murdering her in front of her young son. The sheer randomness and brutality of these attacks sent shock waves of terror through the community. It seemed that no one was safe from the Night Stalker's reign of terror. As Ramirez continued his spree, the media began to take notice. The nickname Night Stalker was coined by the press, a name that seemed fitting given his nocturnal invasions. The media coverage only served to heighten the fear and anxiety among the public. The name Night Stalker soon became synonymous with the faceless terror that was gripping California. Despite the widespread fear and the best efforts of law enforcement, Ramirez's crime spree continued unabated for over a year. His ability to evade capture only added to the mystery and terror surrounding his identity. Who was the Night Stalker, and why was he committing these horrifying crimes? The fear was palpable. Every creak in the night, every shadow in the darkness could have been the Night Stalker. And as the list of victims grew, so did the mystery and fear surrounding the identity of the Night Stalker. This was a time of pure terror, a reign of darkness that would leave a lasting mark on the state of California and the nation as a whole. As the list of victims grew, so did the mystery and fear surrounding the identity of the Night Stalker. The reign of the Night Stalker would come to an end in August 1985, not at the hands of law enforcement, but by a group of brave citizens. The day was August 31st, 1985. Richard Ramirez, the man who had been terrorizing the streets of Los Angeles, was finally identified. His chilling mugshot, a face that mirrored the darkness within, was plastered across every television screen and newspaper. The city was on high alert, its residents united by fear and a determination to end the reign of the Night Stalker. The end came not from a high-speed chase or a dramatic standoff, but from the very community Ramirez had been preying on. The residents of East Los Angeles, having recognized him from the media coverage, took matters into their own hands. Ramirez, attempting to steal a car, was spotted by a group of citizens. A foot chase ensued, with Ramirez darting through backyards and over fences, but the citizens were relentless. Eventually he was cornered, and despite his desperate attempts to escape, the people of East Los Angeles held him until the authorities arrived. It was a capture that demonstrated the power of a community united against an embodiment of evil. The public's reaction was a cocktail of relief, triumph, and sheer horror. The city breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that the Night Stalker could no longer harm them. The media, meanwhile, went into a frenzy. The capture of Richard Ramirez was a story that gripped the nation, a real-life horror tale that had finally come to an end. But the end of Ramirez's reign of terror was just the beginning of another chapter. The trial that followed would become one of the most sensational and infamous in American history. A spectacle that would keep the Night Stalker in the public eye for years to come. Finally, the Night Stalker was in custody, but the shockwaves of his crimes were far from over. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, left a legacy of fear, pain, and a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the human soul. His capture marked a turning point, but it was far from the final chapter in his dreadful saga. The trial that followed was one of the most sensational in American legal history, a spectacle fueled by the gruesome details of his crimes. Over the course of 14 months, prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence, painstakingly recreating the reign of terror that had gripped California. In the end, Ramirez was found guilty of 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. The court handed down 19 death sentences, a grim testament to the magnitude of his atrocities. Yet, even behind bars, Ramirez continued to haunt the public consciousness. His gaunt face and glaring eyes were splashed across newspapers and television screens, a chilling embodiment of pure evil. His notoriety was further amplified by his unapologetic attitude and cryptic statements, which only served to deepen the sense of dread he instilled. Ironically, Ramirez's infamy also found a place in pop culture. His life story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, each attempting to dissect the mind of the Night Stalker. His image has been co-opted into the realm of dark art and music, a disturbing reflection of society's fascination with the macabre. But we must never forget the real human cost of Ramirez's crimes. The survivors and families of his victims continue to bear the scars of his monstrous deeds. Their stories serve as a poignant reminder of the enduring trauma inflicted by such senseless violence. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within, a specter that haunts the annals of true crime to this day. His legacy is one of fear and pain, a grim warning of the depths to which the human soul can descend when consumed by malevolence.